It is Beagle Book Club time tonight. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about a mission to the moon, a Cedar Hollow tale. Welcome back to Beagle Book Club, where the fire's always warm and the tails are always wagging. And there's always more than one way to tell a story, and there's always more than one story to tell. So I'm glad you made it tonight. So pull up a seat, get close and settle in and listen, because this one's going to be one that comes from a quiet evening deep down in Cedar Hollow. On the night some young pups went all the way to the moon. If you ever find yourself out in Cedar Hollow, right about time the, the sun slips behind the pines and the air turns just cool enough that makes you want to reach for a light jacket, you might hear something. Not hounds running, not trucks on a dirt road. Something softer, something younger. Laughter. Now, folks wouldn't think it's pups playing, and they'd be right, but they'd also miss the point of something important, because out there in Cedar Hollow, when the pups play, they don't just play, they become something more. You see, this story ain't about a hunt, it's about a mission. One evening, the pups from the Special Ops Academy, Andy, Mandy, Princess, Chaos, and their little cousin Molly, decided they weren't going to go out in the woods tonight. They weren't going to go chase a rabbit. Chaos wasn't going to go tree a possum. Chaos hadn't figured out he's supposed to be chasing raccoons. He loves to chase a possum. No, sir. They were going somewhere no hound had ever been before. They're going to the moon. Now, they didn't have a spaceship. They didn't have any training. They didn't know what to expect. They have a big imagination. And that's what's important, it's having an imagination. And in Cedar Hollow, your imagination is enough. Andy was the first to speak. Andy had seen his dad stand proud and tall before. And he said, he stood that way and he said, every mission needs a commander. And just like that, Andy was in charge. His twin sister, Mandy, stepped up next. Red bandana tied just right, but this time she wasn't pointing at the sky. No, ma'am, she had a job to do, a serious one. She said, I'll be the medical officer. I'm going to take care of everybody. Now, Mandy had always talked about wanting to be a nurse one day, and you could see right then the way she checked on everybody, the way she made sure everybody was fine and nobody got left behind, that she was going to make a great one. That brings us to little Molly. Molly was the smallest of the group. While the others were building the rocket and arguing about who was in charge, she was just standing there. She was watching, her little tail was wagging, but she wasn't really sure where she fit in. Mandy noticed. Mandy always noticed such things. She walked over. Come on, Molly, she said softly. You're part of this mission too. And right there on the ground, behind that old shed, out behind the barn, back on the back of the farm, Mandy helped Molly build her very first spacesuit. Now, it wasn't perfect. The cardboard was a little big, the tape didn't hold quite right, and her helmet kept slipping down over her eyes. But Mandy fixed it, adjusted it, and smiled at her. There, she said, you're all ready. And just like that, Mandy stood just a little bit taller. Now we got to talk about old Princess. Princess is always a prima donna. She's got to have her fingernails painted. Her hair's got to be brushed just right. Her ears got to be slicked back. Well, now, Princess wasn't about to go to the moon looking a mess. No. She took her time. She wrapped up just right. She made sure every piece of her spacesuit looked perfect. Because if you're going to be the first hound on the moon, you need to look the part. And then there was her brother Chaos. You wouldn't think they were twins because they were complete opposites. Princess was all prim and proper, and Chaos would trip over his own feet. Chaos didn't build his suit, he attacked it. Cardboard was crooked, tape everywhere, helmet sliding sideways over one eye. But I'll tell you, out of all of them, he believed it the most. Now, behind that old shed, behind the barn, way back on the farm, there was a pile of scrap wood and an empty feed box. And next to that stood the greatest spacecraft in Cedar Hollow, a cardboard rocket. They had painted it themselves, crooked letters and all. Ops 1, obedience, purpose, and service. Even in play, they remembered what they had been taught. And sitting right next to that rocket was a hollow light signal lantern, flickering steadily in the evening air. To most folks, it was just a lantern. But to those pups, it was ignition, it was countdown, it was the very fire that would make this rocket take off and take them to the stars. Positions, Andy called out. Mandy climbed in first. Princess followed, careful not to wrinkle anything. And then Chaos dove in like it was already taken off. Mandy looked over at each one of them like a real medical officer would. Is everybody good? There was a chorus of excited barks and squeaks. Andy took one last look at the sky, and that big white moon hanging over Cedar Hollow. And just for a second, he believed they might actually make it. 3, the countdown began, and the woods got quiet. 2, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. 1, launch. And just like that, they were gone. Well, not really. You know, if you'd been standing there, you'd have seen 5 pups in a cardboard box, laughing and bumping into each other. But that's not what happened. What really happened, because in their minds, they broke through the trees, past the clouds, past the stars, and landed somewhere no paw has ever touched before. They landed on the moon. And I'll tell you something, most folks forget as they get older. Imagination ain't just for pretending. Imagination is practice. Practice for believing in things that you can't see yet. Practice for courage, for leadership, for dreaming bigger than the world around you. And out there in Cedar Hollow, those young cadets weren't just playing astronaut. They were learning. They were learning how to lead. They were learning how to care for one another. They were learning to work together and how to believe. Because one day the woods were going to call them out and test them for real. Storms will come. Hunts will matter. And decisions will be heavy. And when that day comes, they'll remember the night that Mandy helped Molly stand tall, and they built a rocket out of cardboard, lit by a hollow light lantern, and flew all the way to the moon. Now, if you're ever out there and you see paw prints in the dirt leading to nowhere, or you hear laughter that shouldn't be any, don't question it. Just smile and remember, in Cedar Hollow, anything is possible. And that's the story, folks. That's the night that Andy and Mandy, Chaos Princess, and little Molly built a rocket ship out of cardboard and flew all the way to the moon. Let me see if I can get you a good look at all the little pups. I got to block my camera. Hang on a minute. There they are. Can you see them? Look at them. Figure out which one's which. Did you figure out which pup's which? Molly was easy. She's the little one. Now, maybe those pups never left Cedar Hollow, but I'll tell you something. That doesn't mean they didn't go somewhere. because sometimes the greatest journeys you'll ever take don't require a map, just a little imagination and the courage to believe. So tonight, wherever you are, I hope you remember to dream a little bigger, laugh a little louder, and never forget what it felt like to believe you could reach up and touch the stars. If you enjoyed this story, like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss a tale from Cedar Hollow. If you like the Beagle Book Club podcast, it's on Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. You can even read the books on Kindle. I've been a little slow getting them published there. There's a couple there. Until next time, the campfire will be waiting, the woods will be listening, and the hounds, well, they'll be ready for the next adventure, because there will always be a next adventure. Good night from Cedar Hollow.